Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Once again, we are going to talk about strictly domestic political issues. We are going to talk about the politics at the center. And then, of course, we are going to talk about Kashmir politics as well, because just now, recently, as if you remember, we covered it thoroughly. The Kashmir elections took place, and in that, PTI, the ruling party at the center, actually emerged as the victor, and they are going to actually form their future government in a few days. Tomorrow, the oath taking takes place of the MPs, and then after that, all the processes will be carried forward. So who's going to be the Prime Minister? That is also a very important question. Then if you remember, we also covered the Sialkot election, in which it was very constantly I kept on pointing out that this was a seat which traditionally belonged to PMLN, and there was an upset that it went to the PTI's column. That said, we have been talking about the wars within parties, particularly this impression that there is some kind of competition between Shehbaz Sharif and Maryam Nawaz. They have their own factions. Yesterday, Shehbaz Sharif gave an interview, and in that interview, we got this impression that he was underplaying it. But still, there was a clear divide that we could see, because his position was of what he calls natural reconciliation, natural consensus. We are going to talk about this thing as well. These are interesting issues that we are going to address in today's program. And let me introduce the guest I've got in the studio and on Skype. On Skype, I'm told that Dr. Afnanullah Khan joins us, Senator of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. In the studio, I'm joined by Javed Sadiq Saab, who is a senior journalist at regular on this channel, and not only a senior journalist, he's a columnist, a talk show host, an editor, and whatnot. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ibrahim Khan Saab, Mohammad Ibrahim Khan Saab joins us in the studio. He is an MNA of PTI, the ruling party, and he is also a patron of this program. You must have seen him quite regularly. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ibrahim Khan Saab, I have to start with you, and I have to start with the question about Kashmir. Why is it that we don't know, even now, who's going to be the PM of Kashmir? AJK.
I personally feel that Prime Minister of Pakistan is in complete consultation with his
core team?
Yes,
okay.
close allies and friends, and I'm sure he'll be making. We have full confidence in his decision making, and he will be making a decision, but not yet disclosed. It could be due to quite many reasons, and as he said very, openly, that it has to, the making or nominating a Prime Minister of Kashmir will have impact on across the border also. So we have to be very thoughtful and considerate about the fact, like, who is going to be the next Prime Minister of
Earlier in the introduction, I was talking about the competition within PMLN. There's this impression that in your party, because it has risen to the center of power for the first time in 22 years, 24 years now, that there's a lot of competition for each seat. And there's a perception that Kashmiri position, or it has not been actually, the nomination is being delayed because of this competition, that there are many candidates and they keep on pushing for their own candidature. Is it true?
We have a simple majority in Kashmir, so I don't think that will be the consideration. Because if you are like forming a government with the help of the allies, and then you have to have certain considerations take into
there are 53 seats, out of which you got now finally the final tally is 32, and out of that 25 were directly elected. Are you telling me that those 25 are not all candidates for PMship?
You cannot stop anyone from aspiring for any seat, but they are still part of the party,
and there isn't going to be any structural threat to your party if one candidate becomes PM or another one becomes?
I don't think so, certainly not.
There were rumors that one faction of the party, perhaps the old one, might actually sever ties if they are not given power. I don't know, it can be wrong. Allow me to actually bring in Javed Sadiq Saab. Javed Sadiq Saab, you can talk about Kashmir first. What do you think is delaying the inevitable thing, that is nomination of a Prime Minister?
What we know from the reports that have emerged in the last few days, that the Prime Minister is consulting the party members in the Azad Kashmir Legislative Assembly. He has also interviewed some stalwarts of the PTI who are aspiring to be the President and the Prime Minister of Azad Kashmir.
President and Prime Minister, both positions are open now?
I think the President is also being, somebody is being considered as the new President of Azad Kashmir.
Okay.
And
can you name that?
And the
that person?
I can't.
Okay.
But the
Why not?
But the Prime Minister.
Why not?
There are so many candidates who are jockeying for the position of the Prime Minister.
Why can't you name the person for the presidency?
I can't. You know, I am not sure about it. Who is going to be
I
the final choice?
To
I don't know. But the competition for the premiership is very strong, and you know, there's a new entrant into AJK politics, a very moneyed man, and he is lobbying very hard and in a very strong manner to become
moneyed
the
man. From moneyed man, I infer that you're talking about Sardar Tanveer Ilyas.
But Azad Kashmir's politics is also very complicated and complex, and we need somebody who is experienced, seasoned, who can run Azad Kashmir, and given the sensitivity of that area.
Experienced, seasoned. So you're very directly pitching one candidate. You're talking about barrister. Right?
I'm not saying that
Sultan Mahmood.
But Barrister has been the Prime Minister of Azad Kashmir.
And during very tumultuous.
And he has been an old, old hand in politics in Azad Kashmir. And I think he is well aware of the political maneuverings in that part of Kashmir. And I think he is a very strong candidate.
He might be very strong within his party, but he was not the it factor who actually carried the day. Either it was Prime Minister Imran Khan, his own promises, or then, Tanveer Ilyas Saab and his
I think
campaign.
Barrister has lost his clout in AJK for a long period of time. Because he has not been very effective. So that's why challenges.
And he has been hopping from one party to another. 6 parties he has changed.
And he is now facing a lot of challenges from within the PTI. Although he has been there for a long period of time, but new entrants into PTI, and he is facing a very tough situation within the party. So,
is there possible that these two candidates are overlooked and the third one emerges? For example, media is pushing the name of Khaja Farrukh.
Farrukh, yes.
Yeah.
He is also a very strong candidate. But ultimately,
how do you qualify a very strong candidate?
I think
if you are in contention, then you are not strong.
The context of Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, must be seen in through another prism, and that is the establishment, given the sensitivity of the area, is going to put its weight somewhere in favor of some candidate. And probably he will be the Prime Minister of AJK.
I want to talk about national issues as well, but Ibrahim Khan sir, let us face it. At this moment, these two elections, one a by-election in Sialkot, the other one Kashmir, they, at least at this moment, it seems that they are dominating the national discourse, and they are going to shape how things are going to be in coming days. Am I wrong when I say that this idea of working out who is going to be a candidate, who is going to come into the cabinet, this job actually belonged to before you actually won, because then you would know what kind of program you are going to offer to the people of Pakistan or people of Kashmir. Is it not true?
It can be taken either way. I mean, if you have taken, decisions before even the, the strength of your, people, you have elected in that particular area. And if, let's say, for example, if you choose to have certain liking for certain people because of their ability and whatever, and they don't get to be elected, then what do you do? So it's always better to wait
No,
till
but
the last minute.
any of
and,
your prime ministerial candidate who hasn't won, I think the entire lot actually got into the system, right, in Kashmir. I'm comparing this 25th July with 25th July in 2018, when every voter knew that if your party comes to power, it is going to be Imran Khan who is going to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. They knew what to expect from your government, from your party, and what kind of program or promises you have made. Is it not a good model to replicate in all provinces and federating units or states like Kashmir?
No, because Kashmir is altogether a different ball game, and with regards to the PTI's Imran Khan as becoming the Prime Minister of Pakistan, that was written on the wall from the day one. If we win, he'll be the Prime Minister, because he has been heading the whole struggle, and he's the one who is the chairman of the party also.
There's nobody at the provincial or state levels that might have actually spent that much time suffering equally, fighting for the cause of your party?
No, it's the people of Pakistan who wanted to see him as a Prime Minister of Pakistan, and being a chairman of the party, and the people like us who were supporting him throughout his struggle. We were quite confident that if we win, he will be the Prime Minister, and there was no competition as such.
If you cannot give me a name of a successful or potential PM of Kashmir right now, can you give me at least some kind of timeline? How soon are we going to see a prime ministerial name emerging from Kashmir?
I think it should not be more than a week, approximate.
Right.
Within that time period, let the people take oath first, and
tomorrow is oath. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think within a week's time, I think Prime Minister will be taking a decision.
Right. Are you equally optimistic, Javed Siddique sir, that it will be the whole decision process will be completed within a week?
I think it should be, because of the situation that is brewing up in Kashmir, and we need to form a government there, and we must put an end to all kind of speculations, lobbying and jockeying and all this. So the decision has to be made, and I believe that the Prime Minister and other players at the top, they must be thinking on these lines, and they want to put an end to it, and they want a government in place in AJK, given the situation on the other side of the border, and also the international situation. And I think there shouldn't be any difficulty for the Prime Minister, the PTI chief, to form a government, to help shape a government in AJK. It is not difficult.
Right. So before I go to Ibrahim Khan Sahab once again, and I'm going to actually ask you to expound on one thing. Explain to us, what do you think is the secret sauce that decided Kashmir's election and Sialkot's election? Is it better organization skills of PTI? But then I'll think, why didn't we see a prime ministerial candidate? Because that candidate actually leads the campaign, right? The other possibility is divisions or weaknesses within opposition parties. And then, while we are talking about the secret sauce, PTI might have won, but the party that came second in Kashmir is People's Party, not PMLN, which until then enjoyed 31 seats in the parliament. So what did People's Party do right in these efforts?
I think People's Party there in Azad Kashmir had electable candidates, and they placed them in the field so that they were able to win, and they did win, and they were well entrenched, and they are well entrenched in Kashmir's politics. For instance, Chaudhry Yasin from Kotli, the son of the former PPP Prime Minister Abdul Majid, his son Qasim Majid. So many of them, and Sardar Yaqub and his son, they were very strong candidates, and they were winning. And so the People's Party put some electables in the field, and that's why they won. On the other hand, the PMLN, I think was not so well prepared for these elections, although the campaign was led by, and it was a very charged campaign, I would say, led by Maryam Nawaz.
Right.
But unfortunately, she was unable to translate the political strength into parliamentary strength.
Right.
There she failed.
This charged campaign where she has a very aggressive narrative, has it started backfiring?
I think yes, because the voters in Kashmir, the PMLN voters, they think, you know, if you look at the pattern of the formation of governments in Azad Kashmir in the last at least 20 years, any government sitting in Islamabad is seen to be managing and manipulating the results in the Azad Kashmir government elections in Azad Kashmir. So I think the voters were ready that the next government will be formed by the PTI. And so they were actually inclined to vote for the PTI candidates.
Right. I understand that. My concern is removing one party from power. People's Party last time, actually when PMLN won, People's Party left with very few seats, but it was second largest party in the parliament. It doesn't seem to be happening now. It is People's Party which has replaced PMLN, right? So the concern is that perhaps they have done something so wrong that people are angry. I have to actually take this argument. Sir, what was your secret sauce in Sialkot?
I think as you said earlier, it was better management.
Okay.
And
Who was managing?
Better management by our organizers who were organizing that election campaign.
Right. Apart from your candidate, who was leading that campaign? Because we didn't see Prime Minister speaking there very regularly. We didn't.
No, I think one of our, the advisor for the youth,
Right.
he was, since he had the earlier experience of losing that election for NA, and with all those loopholes that were left unattended, I think we tried to cover all those aspects of the election.
Right.
And secondly, Nawaz Sharif's meeting with that Afghan gentleman,
National Security
Advisor.
National
Hamdullah
Security
Mohib.
Advisor, right? And thirdly, I think Maryam Nawaz's stance, not talking even a single sentence against the atrocities committed against the Kashmiris in occupied Kashmir.
Yeah, but
by
that
the
would
Modi
affect
government.
in Kashmir or also
It was an
here.
effect
Right,
on-
I'm told
on
that,
both sides.
sorry to cut you, I'm told that we have to take a small break. When we come back, we are going to resume from here. Take a break. Welcome back. Before going to the break, we were talking about the lessons learned from two elections, one from Kashmir, the other one from Sialkot, and then we were also talking about the divisions within political parties. And while we were on in break, actually, at that time we were joined on Skype by PMLN's representation as well. Ibrahim Khan Sahab, I know that I cut you while you were talking, but right now allow me to actually bring him in. Dr. Afnanullah Khan Sahab, thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Let me ask you about the lessons that your party has learned from Kashmir elections and also from Sialkot. Sialkot was thought to be a stronghold. What went wrong? Right. Dr. Saab, you'll have to unmute your audio. Dr. Saab, can you hear me? Right. I can't seem to convey my voice to him. We'll keep on trying to connect with him. Let me come back to Ibrahim Khan Sahab. You were talking about the causes of PMLN's failure. And surprise, you talked about India, right? And Afghanistan's NSA. Do you think that the voters there were focused on these matters? They are not focused on other things, for example, service delivery, governance issues, expectations, employment?
You know, these two issues have been just recently brought to the light. Particularly the Afghan issue is a very sensitive one. And with the Americans leaving and the Taliban and the Afghan government.
Yeah.
And it has been discussed over and over.
But Sialkot is not contiguous to Afghanistan.
But exactly. So there is already a situation is very volatile in Afghanistan, and the timing of Nawaz Sharif's meeting with the security advisor of Afghanistan was not really taken as
a good sign.
Right.
A person who has rebuked Pakistani state and who has,
Exactly.
done
He has a
terrible.
history of anti-Pakistan feelings, and and on the other side, I mean, the same also was while Maryam Nawaz was campaigning in Kashmir. Not a single word was uttered against Modi's policies, the way he has been dealing with the people in the occupied Kashmir.
But sir, with due respect, these are not 2 points, they are 1 point, of course. India and Pakistan's national security. What was the other issue that might have actually made you successful? Are you saying it was organizational skills or something else?
Yes, we handled it much better. This election was handled much better than that was in the last NA election, where that lady even admitted the fact, Nosheen, I presume this is what her name is, who was elected as MNA. She has accepted, and another an N-League spokesperson, Ahmed Khan, barrister Ahmed Khan, he also said like there were no voices heard of any kind of wrongdoings in the elections, and the elections were held very fairly. And PTI very simply, won this election.
Right. Judge Siddiq Saab, is PMLN losing because it is a divided house and their narrative of being wronged in the elections has run its course?
I think that's one reason that the PMLN is sailing in two boats.
Okay.
That's damaging them.
Or has one boat but two captains?
Sailing in
and
two boats.
they are trying to take it in different directions.
They are actually following a two-pronged strategy.
Okay.
On the one hand, they are anti-establishment, and on the other hand, there is a faction within the PMLN which thinks that we should have some kind of understanding or reconciliation with the establishment if we want to gain politically. So these are the two strands of things, of thoughts.
Right, and that is very important. Allow me to go to PMLN's representation. Dr. Afnan, thank you very much. Now I am told that he has joined us on telephone. Dr. Saab, I was asking about your party's recent experience in Kashmir and Sialkot. Sialkot seems is claimed to be your stronghold. What went wrong?
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. The Sialkot election and the AJK election were two different elections to start with. I can first tell you about the AJK election. I was there on the ground. There was a lot of pre-poll rigging for the AJK election, where a lot of PMLN candidates were taken from our party and they were joined PTI just before the elections. I think there are about like 6 people who joined just before the election, and PTI used government resources because they are in government in the center. So they had a lot of resources, so they used those resources to basically facilitate their candidates in AJK. For instance, like the development funds were taken by the central government, and then they were using it to basically coerce the voters and the winning candidates to join PTI. So this was like a lot of pre-poll rigging. But I would also like to confirm that on the day of the polling, what we experienced in 2018 election, it was not like that. There was no invasion of polling stations like we have witnessed in 2018. So it was more or less, polling day was, I would say, much better than what we experienced in 2018. But there was considerable amount of pre-poll rigging that has happened for AJK.
Right. Dr. Saab, you're talking about pre-poll rigging, and you're talking about candidates shifting from one party to another. If I'm not wrong, this usually happens in elections. The ruling party sees defections to a party that might be considered winning. It happened to your before your party, and people came to yours as well. But the question right now is, I understand if there was something awry, but you didn't just lose, sir. You lost even, you were not even runners up. You were the third party. So that was a concern that everybody is talking about. Secondly, Sialkot, because that is important as well. These elections might be geographically separated, but they took place very closely in terms of time. So why do you think, what was wrong in Sialkot?
So, I mean, just to say, answer your previous question, in AJK we came third, but as far as the votes are concerned, we are second, and in fact we are very close to PTI. So it's not something that we have lost from a very long margin. It's just that the way the whole constituencies are constituted, and there are 12 seats outside of AJK as well, all of that come into play. Now, coming on to your question with regards to Sialkot. Sialkot, the seat, the provincial assembly seat is normally with PMLN for a very, very long time. What the government did this time around was that they pretty much there was an independent candidate by the name of Tahir Hundli. They asked him to join PTI, and then they basically used government resources to basically again coerce the voters. You know, the relative of the candidate who won from PTI is the Chief Secretary Punjab. So he was in play a lot. So they basically, used all their might to suppress us, and they managed to win from only by a few thousand votes. So it is not something. Yeah.
Right. I understand this argument, sir, and I have to include the other participants as well. But because you actually mentioned that power was used in both these elections, the question is, then you also had a lot of influence. Your party has been in power in Punjab for 10 years. And in Kashmir, at that time, the Prime Minister was from your party.
Yes, but I mean, we didn't had, like, the Prime Minister was not in charge of the Election Commission. The Election Commission was independent. I mean, if you give this example, then I can quote the example of the previous election when People Party was in charge. And if you go back prior to that, Muslim Conference was in charge. So you can't basically take that example. It doesn't work. But I have to say that we did not use any government machinery. I mean, if there was any, then that PTI would have brought that up already.
Dr. Afnan, is it not true that your party at this moment is divided between two flanks? And because of that, one is quite ferocious, one is hawkish, the other one is dovish. And because of that contradiction, your entire vote bank is not certain whether to vote for you. It might be a reason, can it not be?
Uh, there is no doubt that, in our party there are many groups and there are many factions, and people have, because our party is very big, there are people who have different opinions. So that does exist in our party. I would agree to that. But our leader is Mia Mohammad Nawaz Sharif. The buck stops with him. So whatever policy there is, eventually, we have a debate internal to the party. We all share our views, and then once a decision is made, then we all basically follow that line. PMLN, as you're saying that some are hawkish and some are not that hawks. If you look at our experience in governance for the last 30 years, we have had some nasty experiences, and because of that, that has basically shaped the way we think and shaped the way we perceive things. And we have to basically be very careful about how we handle our affairs with the establishment, and how we go about getting back in the power and getting back in the whole power politics game. So, but because of those experiences, people have different say and
yeah, but we were talking about the division at the leadership level. One understands that Mia Nawaz Sharif might be actually setting the agenda, but Mariam Nawaz and Shahbaz Sharif and possible dispute between them is something that every media channel is right now talking about. Dr. Afnan, do stay with us. Let me come back to the studio. I'm going to come back to you in a short while, sir. Javed Sadiq sir, you have listened to Dr. Afnan's arguments. It might be a big party, but these divisions, they are divisions of direction. They are confusion about direction, whether you are going to actually have some kind of reconciliation with the state of Pakistan, or you are going to be totally hawkish, like Mariam Sahibah and Mia Nawaz Sharif have been. Is it not correct?
Well, the PMLN, I think, is experiencing the real opposition first time.
Being first an opposition for the first time?
An opposition for the first time in the last 30 years of their existence, because they have never faced such a situation. In the past, the PMLN was able to have very good relations, positive relations with the establishment vis-a-vis People's Party.
Hang on. General Musharraf also came into power, and he actually
General
replaced
Musharraf's case was different, because General Musharraf was a military ruler. It was a takeover, and Mr. Nawaz Sharif's government was thrown out of power. And he was basically, he agreed to leave the country through an agreement with the Saudis. But that's
he left the country this time also.
That's a different.
Left the prison and the country.
But that was a different ball game. In today's politics, PMLN is facing the toughest situation of their existence as a political party. So now they are trying two narratives. One, the very aggressive, the hawkish, as we are saying, and the dovish. And both these strategies are adopted to gain politically. But unfortunately, both these strategies have failed as far as PMLN is concerned. None of this narrative has been able to accumulate any political gains for the party.
Ibrahim Hamza, yesterday, Mia Shahbaz Sharif actually gave a very detailed interview in which he constantly kept on talking about, reconciliation and working for the relief of poor man on the street, right? Now his argument seems to be simple, that government and opposition should be able to work together. He is the man who is also leader of opposition in the National Assembly, and he is head of his party, at least technically on papers he is. Is there a possibility, because there are going to be 2 or 3 very important appointments that are going to take place with consultation as per the law, in consultation with the leader of opposition, that Prime Minister of Pakistan can reach out or talk to Shahbaz Sharif? I'm talking about 2 seats that have been vacated in the Election Commission. Chairman NAB's position is changing. There are other appointments that might actually come in coming days as well. Is that a possibility at all?
Those are the constitutional requirements in a way.
No, but you
have to. Yes,
but you got around that matter by actually in the last appointments of election commission, you actually sent it to committee instead of actually reaching out to the leader of opposition.
It again depends on the mood and the strategy that the opposition has. If they're, I mean, on one side they say they're ready to sit and talk, and I think Prime Minister has also very openly, I mean, said recently that okay, fine, I mean, we can sit and talk on the national issues, but no personal issues.
Yeah, but in the past we have heard this. But the initiative is actually sent to the Speaker National Assembly, who then consults the various wings of the various parliamentary parties, and then they constitute a committee. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the chief executive, the head of government, and the opposition talking to each other on a telephone line, perhaps, if not in person.
No, I mean, it does not have to be a telephone line only. It could be a
Physical?
one-on-one meeting, and I think that is a much better way of solving
Is that a
out things.
possibility?
I'm sure there is. I mean, why not? I mean,
Why haven't we seen any example of that so far?
well, because there was a lot of baggage behind the leaders of the opposition on even PPP or PMLN.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, finally, I mean, if they have come to the realization that, I mean, those issues have to be dealt with separately than issues of national interest.
Right.
And I think I mean, the Prime Minister just recently also offered them to come and sit with them and let's talk about these election reforms.
Yeah, after that, this committee was formed, right? The
Right.
chief, you know, the Speaker National Assembly was asked to write a letter, and then he approached him. Yeah.
So we have
No direct contact so far.
yes, but there could be. I mean, one has to.
Let's talk about certain other aspects as well. Dr. Afnan, I understand that your party's narratives are before us, right? They have been explained repeatedly by both the major factions. But do you think this hawkish position, especially not only criticizing the political party of the time, the ruling party of the time, but also state institutions, and then you know, meeting with the NSA, and then outing the picture of Afghan NSA's meeting, the guy who has used very awful words against Pakistan and Pakistani people. These things, and then one candidate actually invoked, your party's candidate on Kashmir election day invoked India's name, and then the Prime Minister of Kashmir starts criticizing his own people and says that they are slave-minded people. Do you think that this kind of aggressive and hawkish position is hurting your party? Dr. Afnan.
Yes. I mean, as far as the hawkish approach is concerned, I mean, sometimes we don't have any other option but to take the hawkish line, and the primary reason for that is the fact that, you know, the establishment is supporting PTI. It's an open secret, and you know, the whole 2018 election was rigged in favor of PTI. I mean, the way it was done was, I mean, the evidence was all over the place. Even the international associations basically pointed that out. So, if keeping that, all of that in mind, if we are hawkish, there is nothing wrong about it, because, I mean, we have to protect the interest of the party and the interest of the country as well. I mean, we don't want to have a fight with any state institutions, but I think that it is more important that the state institutions do an introspection themselves, because it is important that they learn how to partner with political parties for the sake of the country, rather than trying to, you know, govern by themselves.
With due respect, sir, again, if you actually take any allegation to a court of law, you have to produce some evidence as well. Your constant refrain of your party, at least the hawkish side, is not only that the elections were rigged, but so and so people were involved in it as well. So far, we haven't seen you taking these issues to the courts, and we haven't seen any evidence. So one has to conclude, with due respect, one has to conclude that this is quid pro quo, that because PTI complained about your alleged rigging in 2013, you're returning the same favor.
In 2013, when the election concluded, Imran Khan congratulated us on winning the election, and he accepted the result of the election. It was only after 1 year that, you know,
I was one of the
his mind was polluted, and he was told to,
come
you
up
know,
to you.
basically come up with some fancy reasons to basically go after PMLN. Now, coming on to the part with regards to reporting of election fraud, I myself was running for National Assembly seat NA 247 in 2018, and I have first-hand experience of voter fraud, where, you know, people from a certain organization entered polling stations with you know, guns in their hand, and they were basically, you know, they throw the presiding officer inside a
Dr.
room,
Saab,
and then
Dr.
they
Saab, with due
colluded the whole.
respect,
Then they,
I mean,
now let
this
me
is your
let me-
word against anyone else. With due respect, here in this studio, we have a guest who's saying that he was a victim of 2013 elections. So if we actually keep on going on based on hearsay or you know, personal statements, we will not reach anywhere. So you want to comment?
No, I just wanted to say that my case is still pending in the Supreme Court of Pakistan
Which one?
from 2013.
Okay. Okay.
And the decision has not been made on its, you know, finality. And in fact, my results were announced like 3 days later
Right.
after the,
Voting had taken place.
yeah, and I also recall that Mian Saab calling for 2/3 majority at, you know, 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
while the election had, you know, voting has stopped at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah. No. Again.
And so,
Again-
yes, these are allegations, not only allegations. In my case, I have an evidence.
Right.
And not the presiding officer, but the appellant court was like, he found out all those papers and all those votes which were counted. 25% of the total vote was, there was no thumb impression of the voter. There was no signs and stamp of the presiding officer on it.
Right.
And
And
even
we
though
are
there was a
going to talk
difference-
about that as well. I
Okay.
mean, I have shortage of time. I'm going to come to you, sir. But I have to briefly go back to Dr. Afnan. Dr. Afnan, okay, I'm going to use your own argument for the regarding the next elections. If you think that your hawkish stance has alienated any establishment or deep state or the state of Pakistan, and you continue to do that, do you think that within your party there is not going to be any divide? And do you think that you will keep on winning despite that, or win the next elections? Dr. Afnan.
or shift from this to another question. So I'm just saying that let me answer the whole thing first.
Yeah, but, I have
we have a
dearth
very
of time,
clear.
sir, with due respect. We can,
Okay, it's okay.
when next time you come to this program, I will make you sit here and we will have a elaborate discussion about that issue. But today we are not merely talking about allegations versus allegations. We are talking about what happens now in coming days. Do you not at all see the point that your hawkish position might be dividing your party and it might be undermining confidence of your own voter?
I think that if anything, our stance is very famous in the public, and the people of Pakistan wants rule of law. The people of Pakistan wants to have a democratic country where everyone's vote is equal. They don't want interference from state organizations within the whole election process. So if anything, our stance is gaining us more popularity. In the last 13 by-elections, the opposition has won 11 by-elections. That in
Right.
itself is a testament of the fact
Dr.
that this
Afnan.
stance is working well.
Dr. Afnan, we are told that we have run out of time. They say that the taste of a pudding is in its eating. We will keep on seeing the results. Javed Siddiq Sahab, I promise you that I will come back to you. So I have to, and because I am left with 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, so you are going to give us conclusion. I'm just going to wind up the
I
program.
think I'll put a footnote to this discussion. And that is that whatever has been said in the concluding part of this discussion by the two gentlemen, that the electoral system in Pakistan needs to be overhauled, needs to be revamped and reformed.
Okay.
And this is the time for both the government and opposition to sit together, to put their heads together and find out a more acceptable way of holding elections.
Right.
And
I understand what you're saying. It is a great argument. But my concern is that since Pakistan's inception, there hasn't been one election which hasn't been controversial.
Yes.
And we have constantly tried to amend laws and improve these standards, and yet the concern still comes back. Is it not true that we are bad losers? And the fact is that no matter how much you change the laws or bylaws, the people who lose are not going to accept that results.
But I think opposition must call the bluff of the government. If the government is sincere to reform this system and bring in a more transparent electoral system, then I think the opposition should come and talk to the government and hammer out.
That's a very good point. I'm told that we have to conclude here. There is Siddiq Saab, thank you very much for your precious time. Ibrahim Khan Saab, always great having you in the show. Dr. Afnanullah Khan, thank you very much, sir, for your precious time also. I wish you could have joined it earlier, because then we could have had a detailed discussion, but because of the technical Skype issues, you joined us late. But no matter, this discussion will continue. Yes, you have listened to our participants. In Pakistan, political parties hardly ever learn from their mistakes. It is a cultural thing. Perhaps I won't learn from my mistakes either. But it is about time not only to improve the system, but to start improving ourselves as well. Otherwise, we will be caught in the same vicious cycle of refusals or declaring that you have been chosen by the 100% of Pakistan. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.